In this video, you will see the following people. Artistic director Dr. Ju Gosling is a middle-aged white woman with pale olive skin and green eyes behind black plastic glasses. She's wearing a grey trilby hat over short hennaed hair and silver-coloured jewellery, with a blue patterned shirt with red roses. Ju is sitting on a black and white chair, and behind her head a black and white cat is sleeping. British Sign Language interpreter Chris Pryor is a white woman with blonde hair. She is working against a blue background. Youth development worker Kate Rollison is a white woman with shoulder-length dark brown hair with a fringe. She's wearing an orange top under a patterned tunic and is in her sitting room. Club's programme leader Alison Marchant is a middle-aged white woman with strawberry blonde hair and metal-framed glasses, wearing black. She is in her sitting room. Chair Julie Newman is an older white woman with long ash blonde hair under a black hat and glasses. She is lying on a bed.
So I'm going to start, for the sake of everybody who's here and also anybody who's watching on YouTube. It gives me such great pleasure to welcome you here tonight for the opening of the Together 2022 Disability History Month Festival. It's 10 years since we produced our first Disability History Month events. These took place as part of the Together 2012 Festival, which was organised by the United Kingdom Disabled People's Council to connect local residents, visitors, and the London 2012 Paralympics. The festival was a volunteer-led project that I was working on in my role as co-chair of Regard, the LGBTQI+ disabled people's organisation. We continued in response to popular demand, setting up Together 2012 CIC with the support of the United Kingdom Disabled People's Council. And 10 years on, we have just been granted our second round of Arts Council England funding as a national portfolio organisation. We're also very council for our clubs programme, which is a year-round programme of creative activities for disabled people. Our 2012 festival opened with one of the same events that we're celebrating tonight, the Together Open exhibition, and we're going to have a look at that in a moment. The now annual Together Open exhibition brings together work by amateur, community, student, semi-professional and professional artists, all disabled, all ages, from the main Paralympic host borough of Newham. Anyone with a Newham connection, for example, living, studying, working or volunteering in Newham now or in the past, and who identifies as a deaf or disabled person, is able to submit one family-friendly work for guaranteed inclusion. We're a social model of disability organisation, but just to clarify, when we say disabled, we include people with learning difficulties, people with long-term mental health difficulties, people with physical and sensory impairments, long-term health conditions, and people from all ages and all cultural groups. Other open exhibitions set up committees to judge work, usually charging fellow artists for the privilege of refusing to include them. We encourage artists to learn to judge their work for themselves, and we promise to respect and include their choices. Our first open exhibition took place in Stratford in summer 2012, hosted by Eastside Community Heritage, who I'd like to say another thank you to tonight. They really didn't know what they'd started. They rented space from the local Labour Party at vast expense, I might add, in order to create a pop-up museum where visitors and athletes could connect with Newham's heritage and Newham's communities. Eastside offered us their back room for the duration of the Paralympics, and we also held our storytelling workshop there. It was a tiny space, but every inch was covered in pictures. And I think it may have been the first time ever that disabled artists came together in Newham. Fast forward, and the Open has taken place more than 10 times already. because we used to tour it where venues existed. So very often it would go to at least 2 venues. The closest we've had to a gallery space, the closest that Newham's had to a gallery space, was the hub in Canning Town. So we used that regularly for the Open when it was still operated for the benefit of the community. We've also made multiple visits to Old Town Hall, West Ham, Newham Dockside, Beckton Library and Vicarage Lane Community Centre, and many thousands of people have seen our exhibits in the past in person at these public venues. The fact that only Beckton Library is still available as a physical venue, and it's a building which has serious access issues, is just one factor in why we're now an online project instead. This is our 3rd online exhibition and everyone is growing in confidence. Working online opens up new audiences and new means of participating, and also new means of viewing work. So, for example, depending on the file size and quality, we can view work in much closer detail than we can see in a gallery. And that's not just of interest to people with visual impairments. One impact on me as a curator of working digitally is not having to take the frame into consideration when programming the work. In our online exhibition, frames only exist if they're essential. Of course, there are obvious losses as well as gains to moving online. But for disabled people, public spaces have always been a struggle at best to access and have never been the easiest places to work in. I could share so many anecdotes over the years of working with this wonderful team of volunteers and colleagues together, but I prefer to think of the highlights of the exhibition and not some of the difficulties that we had putting them up. But as always, we're learning through moving online, and we will continue to learn and to share that learning. In 2023, we'll be developing the Open exhibition further when it moves to a new home in July, Disability Pride Month. This will be the last Together Disability History Month festival in its current format, as we move to a year-round production season of online events from 2024. However, we'll still be running the Together Disability Film Festival every December for Disability History Month. The pop-up poetry cafe will continue to take place as part of Newham Word Festival. And we'll also be running events for Newham Heritage Month, and our Kitchen Carnival will return in the summer. And alongside this, we have an exciting programme of new events, which I'll tell you more about on another occasion. And our team is going to be joined by an apprentice and an assistant artistic director. So from now on, we'll always be training 2 people as we go. So I think this is a great opportunity, Emily, if you could screen share to take a look at the Open exhibition. So while we just look at this first picture, just to explain the text at the beginning, you have the list of names of the artists, and you have a little piece about how the exhibition's been put together. And they would have been signs, laminated signs. My goodness, we used to do a lot of laminating where we did recycle it. So there used to be laminated signs in the exhibition. We also, when we had physical venues, used to produce a catalogue of artist statements, and so far that hasn't been possible. It's not that we couldn't do it online, but it's actually much more difficult when you're not working in person to get the information from people. But I'd like to draw particular attention to this first image, which is the image that we've been using to promote the exhibition. It's by Jane Waters. It was drawn last month. And Jane is one of our young disabled artists who first started working with our previous youth development worker, Hazel. So it's been wonderful back future, and thank you indeed if you're watching this. So we won't be able to look at all of them, but I'd like to take you through a few. If we can move on to the next one, Emily. And this is my Sarah Hughes, and I particularly wanted to say something about this piece because Sarah was a founding director of Together 2012, and before that was a founder of the open exhibition. We met Sarah working on the open exhibition. Sarah was volunteering as usual, was working with another group. She came in with their pictures. She stayed to help. She never went away again. She's put up more exhibitions with me than I can even begin to remember. We've been very sad to lose Sarah from East London, but we haven't lost her from the Together 2012 community. And this is a bouquet that was given to her recently by a neighbour when her father was unwell. So it had a lot of meaning, and I just wanted to share that tonight. I think we can quickly look at some more, Emily. So this is by Tony Malone, and Tony designed our first ever logos. Well, in fact, he's designed the logos that we're still using because we've gone back to him since then. So Tony was one of our original 2012 volunteers and is now based in Wales, indeed, which is where he drew this. And I think we'll have a proper look at this one, the next one, Emily, because this is by our chair, Julie Newman, and Julie is going to say a few words later. But this piece was actually taken from some flowers growing at Vicarage Lane Community Centre, which was really the only permanent base we ever had. We'd moved to a new permanent base, but that was in December 2019. So I'm not entirely sure it counts, but we were hosted on numerous occasions by Vicarage Lane Community Centre, and then we moved in there in 2017, and these were passion flowers that were growing at the back of the Vicarage Lane garden that Julie picked and took home and photographed and then filtered, I think is the easiest way to describe it. So moving on, I think if we just scroll through, so these are more of the floral. So this is Daxa Armin, who's been supporting the exhibition for many years. And this is Pritesh Patel, and you can see Pritesh performing next Tuesday in A Beautiful Life with ACT UP Newham. It's called Garden, but I particularly like the fact that it's a sort of rodent's eye view, which I have to say is very, very typical of an East London garden. This is by Carol J, Sunflower, and Carol's a member of the Art for Fun group. And we've got a number of different groups who always contribute to the exhibition, and without whom, you know, the exhibition wouldn't be half as big as it is. We'd really like to thank Sue Hooper from Art for Fun for all of the work she's done to coordinate some of these exhibits. And this is by Cheryl, who's a member of the Together Art Club. And Cheryl McClellan drew this in 2021. It's a sunflower. For anybody who's visually impaired, there are out tags with audio descriptions of all of these. But if anybody would like a personal audio tour, then please email me, ju@together2012.org.uk, and I would be delighted to organise it. So if we keep going, Emily, so we go past, so this is more sculptures from Art for Fun. I think if we scroll down so we can move on to the next section. But we must stop here a moment because this is by Alison Marchant, our club's programme leader. And again, I've seen Alison, you know, I knew of course of Alison as a mid-career Newham-based artist, and then she became a volunteer. And then she worked more closely with us, and now she's my colleague and effectively partner because we're working at the same level, and Alison leads the club's programmes. And that's Closed Landscape Revisited, which I think says an awful lot about Britain in 2022. So we carry on again, Emily. Oh, let's just go back to that previous. So this is our very own Kate Rollison, who joined us last, well, I'd like to say that I know exactly when Kate joined us, and I do really, but I'm not going to kind of get it wrong. But Kate is our youth development worker and an emerging international artist, and this is made with homemade oak gall ink on paper. So I think at some point we're going to get Kate to do a session on how she made the ink. And then this next one, Now that's Mohammed M, and that's another art for fun piece. And I love the way the blossoms falling off as well as very much kind of dominating the tree. And then I think we're into the nature section, Emily. So if we go through some of that, we've got Hasifa's hedgehog made out of cardboard. We've got Andrew C's hedgehog. We've got Leanne Edwards' owl in a tree. Now this is Tracy joins us effectively our live streams, and Tracy started co-hosting the live streams off and on in 2020 and then became one of our main co-hosts in 2021. This is a cross stitch that she did recently for a friend's wedding, so it's very much themed around their wedding. And as we have a wonderful fine art embroidery fine art embroidery exhibition, I was particularly pleased when Tracy started doing some embroidery. And then I think we've got some more nature pieces, haven't we, Emily? So this is by Sean Bedminster with insects and butterflies. I think Sean was part of Art for Fun. Oh, this is Kang Sing Fung, also Art for Fun. And this is beautiful butterflies. Again, you know, there's a lot of blossom in those trees as well. And here we have Sarah's butterflies, which is paint on canvas. And again, I think that came in through Art for Fun, although I don't have the best memory in the world due to one of my impairments. So again, I wouldn't like to guarantee that that was absolutely correct. Then we have a photo, I think, from Julie Cordell. And we've been very pleased to welcome Julie's work over the last 2 or 3 years. And then we have one of mine. And this is called Platinum Jubilee. And I actually created it over the Jubilee weekend for an exhibition that I think they host every year in America, actually, called Opulent Mobility. And quite often I do a piece for Opulent Mobility. And this was my piece this year. So it's actually on exhibition in the States at the moment as a printed image. But those of you who know Together Well may recognise the Paracarnival crown from previous years. So moving down, we're now in the self-portrait section and portraits. This is by my PA, Emily Welsh, and Julie, our chair, reminded her of the old saying that a woman needs a man like a fish needs a bicycle. This is a sort of slight variation on that. This is perhaps like a crocodile needs a bicycle. And then this is by Eve Smith, and Eve is with us tonight, I think. And Eve has been one of our trainees, and Eve is now in her 2nd year at university studying acting. So we were just delighted. This is really part of an installation. So Eve's done a series of photographs and also has some physical pieces. So this is a bit of a preview, but we're just delighted to have this piece from Eve. And, you know, congratulations, Eve. I think it's going to be an incredibly powerful installation. And then we have some more portraits. This is by Ella Higginbottom, and Ella's a member of various different art groups, but we've been very pleased to have Ella taking part in the Together Art Club and in past open exhibitions. So it's terrific that she could do that tonight. And now we have one by Renee, and Renee Wallen does our social media lead and is also a poet as well as a painter. So yeah, I think that's a stunning painting, Renee. Really, really love it. Now, this is by Yuvraj Singh, and Yuvraj is a member of the Rosetta Art Centre's Art Stars project. And Art Stars is for young disabled people. They have to do all of the funding at Rosetta for this themselves. So it was great to have this come in. And yeah, I think it's a very, very striking self-portrait. We're really pleased to support Art Stars, and I hope Art Stars goes from strength to strength in the future. I hesitate to describe this as a portrait, but I put it into the portrait section because I thought that was where it belonged best. But Lorraine, I love it. So thank you very much for doing it for us. And it's large postcard size, and I think it's a really great example of postcard art, actually. Now, I can't remember who's, I'm not entirely sure where this one came from. I know it's called Chucky, but Julie, our chair, was very, very impressed by the texture on the paints. You know, we're moving into the abstract section, but I think this is, you know, I agree. I think this is a really, really interesting piece. Now, this is by Duncan Bridgestock, and Duncan, I don't know quite how to say this, but we hosted a wonderful exhibition of Duncan's collages last year. And I was particularly pleased to do that because Duncan's a locally based artist. So it's great to have one of Duncan's collages in now. And this is a hand-drawn abstract piece by Dawn Barber, who's a member of the Together Art Club, but also works with other art groups, including the Art Recovery Group and I Believe Enough. And Dawn was one of our very first volunteers back in 2012. Volunteer as well as a participant. So it's lovely to see Dawn again. Yes, if we keep going down, Emily, that's assuming it will keep going down, of course. This is by Crystal Peasy. We could, oh, sorry, if you go back up a bit, Emily, that's it. So this is Crystal Peasy's candles painting. We had to take this from a Zoom screenshot, which of course is, you know, one of the challenges of working digitally, but also it's much easier to take a screenshot than not be able to take delivery of a picture. So well done, Crystal. We have a still life session that's open access every Friday from 11 to 12. Alison Marchant creates an image. She audio describes it. We, you know, have some real focus on it, but she can also WhatsApp it, text it, email it. So the still life group is open to everybody. All you really need is a pen or a pencil and a piece of paper. But of course, you know, you can also use any kind of medium you like. So if we move on to this next one, this is a montage from the Mighty Mega Club. And the Mighty Mega Club has been a partner, a friend of ours since the beginning. It's been running longer than us. It's run on a Saturday morning by the Children's Discovery Centre in Stratford, who are also an Arts Council England national portfolio organisation. Again, I can't really praise them highly enough, and it's great to see the usual sort of colourful group submission. So we have time for quickly go through the rest. This is Still Life, and I think these by Glory Sengo, these shoes were part of the Still Life at the Art Club originally. If we move on down, this is Lee Brooker's Plimsolls, and Lee's a very kind of regular member of the Still Life group. I don't know whether the Plimsolls were part of Still Life or whether he set that up at home, but of course part of the Still Life group is so that you can still see things from home. And carry on. So more, this is from Sophia, who's a member of the Still Life group, with red shoes. More shoes from Dwayne Bryan, and again that unfortunately had to be a screenshot. Now I love this boat. This is by Mohammed K, and it's mostly paint with some cutout as well, but yeah, I think there's just something really, really cheerful about it. And similarly, I do love this mask. You know, I think there's something even scarier about it because it's not on the face. But yes, it's very interesting, is all I can say about it. But I'm very, very pleased that Peter R contributed it. So now these two pieces came from the Tuesday Make and Natter session, where people have been experimenting with salt dough. So these were two new people. So this was Harrow and then Symbiat. And they joined, I think they joined us for the Make and Natter session for some of our specialist Black History Month sessions, which is great. So just to carry on, our final piece for today, it's got a bit of a festive theme. So thank you to Dayon for your Christmas tree plate, which I think has been a really interesting example of just how much you can do with a recycled paper plate. But again, thank you, Dale, and thank you to all of the artists. We really appreciate it. Now, I'm just checking, Margaret had raised a hand. Oh, well, I've got 2 comments anyway. I haven't found a raised hand, but as most of you realise, we're struggling a little bit with some of the updates on Zoom. Ross is here from Discover Children's Centre, and he says, thanks for having Mighty Mega as part of the exhibition. Such a beautiful collection of work. And Renee Wallen says, Jane Waters' painting is absolutely gorgeous. So is Sarah's butterflies. The quality of work is incredibly high, and I feel honoured to be included in this outstanding exhibition. Congratulations to Eve. Wonderful. Thank you for that. I love the exhibition, and I'm just so pleased that it's going to have not only a new home, but we'll be able to really focus on it as a standalone event. But for everybody who thought they'd got 12 months to do their next piece, no, you've got 6. So we're also celebrating 2 other exhibitions tonight. Untamed Threads brings together 3 artists, Nuala Abramson, Zipporah Johnston, and our very own Kate Rollison. Sorry. All of these artists are working in fine art embroidery, and we'd love you to come back on Thursday night from 7 to 8 p.m. to view their exhibition in detail and hear more about their work. I don't know, Kate, if you want to switch on and say a couple of words, in which case we'll spotlight you as well.
Hello, yes, it's a really exciting exhibition focusing on animals and animal symbolism, amongst other things, and we'll be delighted to see some of you for our discussion on Thursday. I'm also running an accessible embroidery workshop without using sewing needles next Tuesday, the 29th, from 11 a.m. to 12 noon.
Brilliant, thanks, Kate. And I have to say that both of those events are already proving to be very, very popular. So if you haven't already booked, I encourage you to come. As with everything at the festival, you don't have to book. You can just click on our website and watch it being streamed live. But if you want to go to the workshop, then that won't be made publicly available. So you do need to register in person. That's great. Thank you very much indeed, Kate. So I'm really delighted to tell you that for our 2nd year running, our solo exhibition this year is from a Newham-based disabled artist, Kindness Matters by Tracy Vidal. Duncan Bridgestock's 2021 collage exhibition, Because I Felt Like It, was really wonderful. And as I said just now, I'm so pleased to see that Duncan has a new collage in this year's Open. Tracy and Duncan are great role models for other emerging artists in Newham. So yes, did you know that 13th of November was the 25th annual World Kindness Day? It was introduced in 1998 by the World Kindness Movement, a coalition of non-governmental organisations. It's observed in many countries, including Canada, Australia, Nigeria, and the United Arab Emirates. Singapore observed the day for the first time in 2009, and Italy and India have also observed the day. We kind of observed the day here, but if you didn't know that it was that the 13th of November was World Kindness Day, then you'll have gathered we're not celebrating kindness enough. So what is kindness that it matters so much in Tracy's exhibition? Wikipedia says kindness is a type of behaviour marked by acts of generosity, consideration, rendering assistance or concern for others without expecting praise or reward in return. Kindness is the topic of interest in philosophy, religion and psychology, and kindness was one of the main topics in the Bible. And dictionaries defined kindness as the quality of being friendly, generous and considerate. He thanked them for their kindness and support. I'm not sure that's the best example because, yes, I think as disabled people, there's lots of cynical things we could say about that, but that indeed is what the dictionary says. Anyway, it's never been more important than now to think about kindness in relation to life online. The growth of social media has led to an explosion in unkindness, affecting everyone who's old enough to use a phone. Unlike traditional media, anyone can say virtually anything about anyone, often directly to them. The lack of kindness online is a major barrier to digital inclusion, and often far more so than lack of money. And Tracy's image, "Oh my stars," reflects how fake expressions of concern on social media can simply be another way of being unkind. We're going to come on to Tracy's exhibition in just a minute. I just wanted to flag up another couple of things first, and I'm going to put these links onto the website later. There's a blog called Inspire Kindness, and they say kindness goes beyond being merely nice. Then there can in fact be a lack of sincerity in just being nice. There's often the perception of doing the minimum, whereas being kind is doing intentional, voluntary acts of kindness, not only when it's easy to be kind, but when it's hard to be. And they also point out that kindness is a movement. Has someone ever done anything kind to you and all you wanted to do was pay it forward? That's because kindness is a chain reaction, it's a wave that keeps rolling, and it only needs one person to start it. This is all from the blog, I hasten to add. One small kind act can cause a ripple effect that impacts an entire community. And if we're all focused on being kind, we're creating a movement of change. And critically, kindness is fundamental to our own emotional well-being and to the well-being of others. The Mental Health Foundation has found that almost 2/3 of adults said that if someone's kind to them, it has a positive impact on their mental health, and so does being kind to other people. And they've produced a comprehensive online guide to ways in which we can incorporate kindness to ourselves and others into our everyday life and support our mental health and other people's. And what's essential is that we start by being kind to ourselves. We need to apply the same understanding, tolerance, and acceptance to ourselves that we give to others. We need to be a generous, considerate friend to ourselves, and particularly at this very difficult time for the country. I know our chair's going to hate me for saying this, but as RuPaul points out weekly on drag races around the world, if you don't love yourself, how are you going to love somebody else? So I really want to thank Tracy for pointing all this out in her art. Tracy doesn't talk about the work, so I have the honour of talking about it tonight instead, together with Alison. And Tracy also wants me to thank Alison Marchant for all of her hard work in organising and photographing the exhibition, because the original artworks being exhibited are physical, not digital. So if we could start by looking at the exhibition, Emily. So I know Tracy is a painter. In this show, though, Tracy's used copy art and stamping to create many of the works. Rubber stamps have been used in fine art since pre-revolutionary Russia, and then became part of mail art in the 1940s, although mail art wasn't used as a term until the 1960s. I think if we go through each one and just stop on it for a little bit and move on again, Emily, that would be great. So copy art began almost as soon as the first copiers were invented by Xerox in the 1960s. Andy Warhol was just one of the artists who embraced it. And since then, it's often been used within collage, mail art, and book art. Publishing collaborative mail art in small editions of Xerox arts and mailable book art was in fact the purpose of the International Society of Copy Artists, founded by Louise Odes Nederland. I have no idea how to pronounce that, but I'll put it into the link. I think that's a little bit fast, Emily. So copy art is a relatively accessible form of fine art, as is stamping. No studio or expensive supplies are required. just ordinary paper, scissors and ink, and access to a photocopier in a local library. It's also easy to get started. Anyone can begin at any level. And Tracy hopes that other people will be inspired by her own enjoyment in creating images, because first and foremost, Tracy enjoys making her work. So one form of copy art is to incorporate copied images into collage. And this is the technique that Tracy's focused on. In particular, she's focused on a few stamps by the well-known brand Janet Klein, featuring an angel, little girls, a dancing or a drumming woman, and hearts. Now, I was really interested to know who the artist is behind this brand, but I couldn't find one. So unless somebody else can tell me, I'm still unsure if they're an individual, an East Asian company with a very strong design aesthetic, or an eBay operative. But one of the questions that Tracy explores in her work is the relationship between the stamp designs sold commercially, the clip art of the non-digital world, and the work that's created with them. Who is the artist? And does it make a difference if you've got a fine art background? In many of the images that you'll see, Tracy's cut out the original stamp, printed on white paper, and glued it onto black paper. Then she's cut that shape out and glued it back onto white paper before adding stamped text. And this isolation and reframing of the images in itself changes their nature and makes them darker and less certain in meaning. And Tracy also plays with the size of the images. Sometimes a whole image is shrunk to appear next to another on a button badge design, while another time a detail will occupy the entire page. Images are repeated with different colours or none, and with different texts. If there was an original meaning intended by the stamp designer, it's no longer clear here. Tracy has very much changed it. The heart is a constant motif, both between the copy art and in Tracy's accompanying series of acrylic paintings. And I'm just going to pause here, Emily, if we just move on to Tracy's paintings. As you can see, there's lots in this exhibition to look at. Oh, let's just stop here a minute. So this is the image that I mentioned earlier. Oh, my stars, you're such a clutch. You worry me, Tracy, you really do. And I think that's a classic example of the sort of message that somebody sends pretending to be concerned, but in fact, it's actually being really unkind. So if we scroll on to the first of the paintings, Tracy. Well, actually, let's scroll past these two paintings because they don't have hearts in them. And let's start with this one. So this is part of a series called Faux Floral, True Love Hearts Allegory Painting. In the copy art, the angel and some of the little girls hold a heart, and in the figure of the drumming or dancing woman, a red heart is the only colour. In Tracy's paintings, which are mainly in black and red on a white background, she shows the heart as being literally and metaphorically central. Most often, as in this painting, it's connected to other hearts. And I think if we just, as before, Emily, if you go through and just pause on each one. So flowers are the other recurring symbol through the exhibition, reflecting the relationship between flowers and love. And false love, unkindness, is a theme here too, but so is kindness, and not just being received but given out. And kindness makes us stronger, and that really comes across in particular in Tracy's piece Black Chick Magic. What kindness gives us is hope, and while it also reflects the difficulties of love, Tracy's exhibition is a very hopeful exhibition. It was also very kind of her to share it with us, and I'd like to thank her on behalf of us all. And now, while we continue to go through some of the images, I'd like to bring in our club's programme manager, Alison Marchant, who's seen Tracy's career develop over more than 30 years. Alison's going to tell us a bit more about Tracy, and then we're going to open up to everybody to come back and ask questions and make some points. So I think actually, if we just go through some of the rest of these, and then we'll bring in Alison. Yes, let's finish with this one. So it says, for anybody who can't see it, I used to love you. I'll guard it now. You're stuck with me. And we were discussing this in the team meeting, and it was very much about the different meanings that you know, yes, it's open to so much interpretation. I will leave it for you to enjoy for yourselves. So if we stop screen sharing, Emily, and Alison, if you'd like to switch your camera and microphone on. And bingo, the spotlight as well. So Alison, you're still on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Great. I met Tracy in 1989 at the Tom Allen Centre in Stratford, E15, when I was in an exhibition called Copy Art. Tracy was one of a group of students from East Ham Community College Arts Foundation course who attended my workshop. The workshop commenced at Aragon Day Centre in East Ham, interviewing elderly residents, note-taking and scanning their old photographs. We then went back to Tom Allen Centre, and Tracy and the students made collages with photocopies for the photographs and text mingled with objects like combs and hair mounted on and through wallpaper. The students exhibit their work as a collective installation at the Tom Allen Centre as well. And at the time, copy art was quite big and widely shown in alternative art galleries. At the time, Tracy was a painter and went on to study her fine art degree at Wolverhampton University with 2 other Newham students. Later, I became a visiting lecturer there and gave Tracy and her peers tutorials. Tracy was making large paintings around 4 foot high and greatly admired the work of Sonia Boyce and Lubena Himid, and still does. But Tracy has her own style with a certain kind of figurative painting and graduated with a BA in fine art. In her work, Tracy is interested in the domestic, and with her current show with Together 2012 entitled Kindness Matters, she has worked on a domestic scale in her own living room on a scanner and copier and with her paints and canvases throughout the lockdown period. In this body of work, Tracy also uses stamp art, which is also a predominant domain of mail art in the 1980s. In her works on paper, many of the figures and shapes are various found visuals brought together with her own text, colouring and collage techniques, with individually stamped letters where the rest of the compositions are reappropriated to create new meanings and a new picture. These meanings are messages of kindness and strength, such as Black Lives Matter, love, self-worth and isolation through stylized florals, hearts and figures, with the layering of collage and printing and paper cuts framing them. Beneath this, there is a darker side, such as I used to love you, I'll guard it now, you're stuck with me.
Thank you, Alison. I was so enchanted to discover very, very recently that you'd actually had this knowledge of Tracy and you'd seen her through this whole career, which I think if if you're an artist who also works in teaching, probably that's an experience that's not uncommon, but I just thought it was absolutely fascinating. And also that Tracy's had you as a role model through that. And I think with both her show and Duncan's show last year, the accessibility I also found really important. That it's about Duncan was using domestic recycling through the pandemic. Tracy was able to order stamps online or get them from, you know, well, you can buy them from places like the pound shop if you've not, you know. Yeah, I mean, it's just really, really accessible techniques. You don't have to have wonderful fine hand control. You know, it's the kind of thing you can ask a PA to actually do under your instructions. And yet it's so complex. And when I was writing the audio descriptions, the out tags, you know, I just realized, well, here is this image and it's shrunk, and now it's bigger, and now it's lost the words, and now it's in black and white, and all of those different processes I just found absolutely fascinating. I wonder if anybody's got anything they would like to pop in the Q&As in terms of their own feedback on the exhibitions, or if any of our panelists want to add anything, then please feel free to switch your microphones on as well. Julie, I'm going to switch. Well, I'm going to ask you if you could switch on, because we're going to come to you next anyway, and we'd love to know what you thought of Tracy's exhibition. So if we can just spotlight Julie as well. Brilliant.
Hi, do you want me to say what I thought about it?
Yeah, I think it would be great to have that feedback, and I'm sure Tracy would appreciate it as well.
I like anything where I can learn something new, and I've learned a lot of things new through Tracy's exhibition that I had no idea about. I haven't got any formal art college learning at all, and in fact, any learning that I've done around art has been sort of self-directed. So it's going to galleries or reading books or something. So having something so immediately available in our own exhibition, and having the honor of being able to host Tracy's solo exhibition has been really fantastic, because I have learned an awful lot there's so many things I don't know, and you know, I'm quite old now, and it always amazes me that there's still so many things that I don't know, and how much I love learning them. But Alison, I think one of the things that you've highlighted for me is the privilege of being able to follow somebody through their career. And that is a real privilege, I think, and I think it's an indication of the respect that Tracy has for you, that she's kept that contact up so actively over the years. But I think, you know, in the short time that I've known Tracy, which comparatively is actually not very long at all, I've loved watching her work develop. Tracy, I hope at some point you get to see this in the playback. But I have always enjoyed your work. I found it fascinating. You come at life from a completely different angle from me, and from a lot of the artists that I'm familiar with. So again, I'm always learning with your work, but I'm also enjoying it very, very much. And I think that's a feature of the exhibition tonight for me, is looking at those works again and just thinking, I really like that. And it's so simple and it's so strong. And it shows me yet again in my learning mode that that you don't have to be all fancy and, you know, highfalutin. You can use what's at hand and make something that's got a very strong statement attached to it, but also which is also very enjoyable. So, you know, Alison, thank you for presenting Tracy's work like this, and also, you know, I think the work that you've been doing behind the scenes is also very impressive.
Yes, I mean, I think one of the privileges of running Together 2012 for 10 years is being able to look at a whole range of artists working in different media and different genre, and how much people have developed, and how much I think we've all benefited from being able finally to have a disability arts community in Newham that also extends beyond to the people who've moved out of Newham, to the people who've come to Newham to perform their work for us and share their work. And yeah, I really look forward to being able to see how people's work develops over another 10 years. I mean, if we widen this back out to the open exhibition, you know, it's quite astonishing to me to think that here is Eve Smith with a very powerful self-portrait from her own installation, being in her second year at university, when back in 2012, she was a very young person indeed, coming along to events with her parents. You know, we've also seen people who've really just started making wonderful progress. And I think it's so important to me that embedded in what we do is that everybody's got something to teach us, and we've all got something to learn. And that's what allows us to come around, well, used to be literally around the table, now around the online Zoom-based table in our club's programme, and say, wherever you are in your career and whatever your abilities and so-called talents, you know, you're equally welcome. These events can be equally inclusive and equally accessible, and everybody can progress. And I think the progression that I've seen people make, I would never now, you know, I think 10 years ago, I would probably have been quite dismissive of some people's work. And now I would never make any assumptions whatsoever, either about their background or where that work's going to go in the future, because I've seen people do wonderful things. You know, statistically, we still have less engagement with art and culture in the borough of Newham than anywhere else in the UK. But I'm sure that's not true of disabled people. You know, I think in this case, it is very much disabled people are leading the way, because we have so many disabled residents who are really committed to their own art, you know, whatever that looks like. And again, first and foremost, for enjoyment, I think, and it's been such a solace to so many of us with, you know, during the pandemic and beyond. It's never been more important to us. And I think another highlight very much for us has been absolutely recognised as key workers. You know, who would have thought back in 2013 that by 2020 Newham Council would be recognising our work as key work? I certainly wouldn't. So, Julie, would you like to say a few words now more about the festival as a whole in your role as chair, as we're coming towards the final bit of the evening?
Well, thank you for the opportunity, Ju. I was thinking actually, as I was watching the evening unfold, how in 2012, when we started this whole extravaganza with Together 2012, how the commitment from everybody who was involved at that time has stayed with us. And an awful lot of the people who were involved at the very beginning are still with us as well. And I think that's a really good indicator of the value of the work that we're doing. To have the festival again this year, and I know next year, Ju, you indicated that's going to change. And I must say, I really welcome having young people involved as well, and being able to grow the organisation in a healthy and wholesome way. But I remember when we started off, we wanted desperately to leave a legacy and to create a legacy, a cultural legacy from what cost an awful lot of money and excluded an awful lot of people. So we wanted to just show how if you involve ordinary people like us, then it changes things. It changes the philosophy, it changes the atmosphere, it changes the spirit of what you're doing. When I was in hospital many years ago, for quite a very, very long time, actually for 15 years off and on, the only opportunity I had to feel complete, to feed a need in me, which was the need to paint and to draw and to use clay and to do things that was artistic. And it didn't matter that I hadn't got that education, but it was really important for my complete wholeness that I was able to find that expression and to find a way of expressing it. And unfortunately, at the time, that was often taken away from me as a punishment. And that, you know, that goes very deeply. And this is part of my own burning desire to make sure that everybody who has that desire, that need inside of themselves and their hearts, that they want to create something and they want to use art to do it, has that opportunity. We're a grassroots organisation. We've always been a grassroots organisation. And for that, I'm so grateful and so proud. And this festival, as always, has just made me feel even prouder to be involved and to be the chair and be working with such wonderful people. Our staff team are just unique, so skilled, so generous, so kind. And our support staff who come with us over and over again, similarly. I think to my way of thinking, we are a friendly organisation, and I really trust that we will stay that way.
Thanks, Julie. And yeah, I think one of the reviews we had in 2012, we were dubbed the Friendly Festival, and we've tried to make sure ever since that continues. I'd like to echo what Julie was saying about the team. We have Alison, we have Kate, but we also have our contractors. We have Leslie, our bookkeeper, Renee, who does social media, Laura, who leads on the main media. We've got all sorts of people helping. We've got volunteers. I have to thank our funders, of course, Arts Council England and Newham Council, without whom we couldn't run the festival again this year. I'd like to thank our board and our community advisory board members who give up their time to help us to create the best organisation possible. I'd like to thank our access support workers, Norma McKay from Global Real-Time Captioning and Chris Burrow from Burrow Interpreting, who, as Julie says, have very much become part of our regular team over the years. I'd like personally to thank my PA, Emily Welsh, whose support has been invaluable for the second year running. I'd like to thank, of course, all of the exhibiting artists without whom we wouldn't be here tonight, and my hearty congratulations to all of you, whether that's the first painting you've done or whether that's part of a very, very long career. And finally, thanks to all of you for attending and for supporting this, our 11th, and it has to be said, final Disability History Month Festival. It's very much about the people. We would never have set up the organisation if it wasn't, if you like, about audience demand, and we're extraordinarily grateful for that support that we've had over such a long period and going forward. I was really delighted that we were awarded the East London Community Heroes Award for Outstanding Initiative in Art and Culture, because it recognised the work of every single person that makes up Together. Our motto has always been, together we are strong, together we can change our world. We're a human rights organisation as well as a disability arts organisation, and all three exhibitions very strongly reflect that. I really hope and encourage you to come back again, join us on Thursday to find out far more and meet the artists from Untamed Threads. So join us at 7 o'clock on Thursday for Untamed Threads Untangled. We also have a great week next week, including a sign dance workshop with Sign Dance Collective coming up on Monday. We have Kate's Eco Embroidery Workshop on Tuesday morning. We have Act Up Newham on Tuesday night with A Beautiful Life. On Thursday the 1st, we have the launch of our Sugar Globe project and a really groundbreaking conference, which I encourage everybody to come to, which looks at the impact of the transatlantic slave trade and very specifically how it affects our lives as disabled people today, which is something I think most people are not aware of, is how much the enslavement of African peoples directly impacts still on our environment and our access and our treatment in hospital. So do come to that. Then we have our film festival. Perhaps we could switch the microphone. Dog keeps growling, Julie. So we have the film festival the weekend of the 3rd and the 4th, including a great programme for International Day of Disabled People. And then finally, we have our traditional cabaret party on Thursday the 8th. So do come to as much of that as you can. If you don't have time to click onto Eventbrite and book, or you don't have a link, just go onto the website, see the programme page, and the live stream will be at the top there. So it's exactly 8 o'clock. I'm going to say thank you all so much again. Have a very good evening and a safe journey to the kitchen or wherever you're due to go next. So thank you from all of us.